Hello everyone and welcome back. I apologize that you haven't had a video from me in a few minutes.
Been a long time.
And by minutes, I mean a couple weeks. I was in Hawaii for the UOP UCSF Dental Island Colloquium, which is very fantastic. I highly recommend everybody attend this. In the future, it'll be in the Big Island next year, and then in Oahu on Turtle Bay in 2026. So excited for those two dates. And then I was just at the IAE. Very good speakers there as always. That one is going to be in Manchester next year. So if you need an invitation, I became a member this past Saturday, I guess. So a few days ago, I finally got inducted. It's been a 5-year process, but very excited to finally become a member of a very stellar organization, and I now have the ability to invite people. So yeah, any of my viewers from overseas, it's probably a lot easier to get to England than it is to get to the United States. So if you would like to come and see a bunch of fantastic CE, please feel free to send me a message. Anyway, I thought it's been a few months since we've done the update on my so-called suitor study, and that is how you say my last name, by the way. And I just wanted to quick go through what is the actual MB2 incidence. And as we've kind of gone over before, I do think it matters on these cases where about 50% of what I do is retreats, and of those, I would say 90% of them are maxillary first molars with missed MB2s. It is what paid off my student loans. It's what's currently paying for my house remodel. If you want to be a good endodontist, learn how to find MB2, because hopefully this study will start to show you that it's more prevalent than expected. So just to review where we were, over the last 3 months, I finished this I sent out some information in November. We had seen 35 maxillary first molars. 33 had two separate, what I call points of negotiation. That's the PONs. And what I mean by that is when I am done, there is some dentin left between the MB1 and MB2. I kind of been having a Mandela effect of I'm pretty sure this is a term in endo, and when I presented this to some of my friends, they actually said they had no idea what a PON was. So let me know if I made this up, but that's kind of how I'm looking at it, of how many still end up having two separate orifices, orifi, I guess, by the end, and we're at 100% MB2 so far. So let's go ahead and hit it up in November. I do love these AI generated images. PowerPoint will do this, which is kind of fun. But pumpkins, November makes sense to me. So starting off, 2 MBs. This one is here what I talk about, that this I count as a single point of negotiation by the time we're done. But this one is where they start off separate and do end up joining. I still consider these to be 2 separate MBs. The retreats, like we're talking about, my infamous drawing on the cone beam, I highly recommend you do this for your patients because it's very easy for them to see. This is a lovely thermophil, and you can see as soon as I pop that main MB, we had a ton of pus come through. That's what it looked like when we finally finished, and you can see our MB2 there as well. Another 2 MBs, 2 MBs. This one, you can see the spread on it was quite large. The cone beam kind of gave you an idea of how much distance there is between the MB1 and MB2, but always important to look for these things. This one was interesting because look at how the distal buccal, you can almost see towards the left there, that's the buccal. That's where it started, but the distal buccal actually moved quite a lot to the palatal, which is not something we normally see. Generally, they stay in place. The MB2s move a lot, but you can see where it started, it does follow that rule of bisecting your MB1 and MB2. In this case, though, it ended up being more to the palatal than even the MB2. So kind of an interesting case there. Pretty straightforward MB2s, 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 and sometimes I'm going to be showing pictures without the gutta percha in because I think it's a little bit easier to see the 2 separate orifices than it is when I fill it all the way up with gutta percha. So in case you're wondering why a couple of these have pictures with it dry versus with the gutta percha, that's why. This one here is an MB3, another MB2 here, MB2. And so through November, we're at 48. 45 of them had 2 separate orifices with still 100% incidence. Moving into December, MB2, 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 MB2. This one was really fun, actually. Dentist, who I don't work with as much, accidentally broke off quite an extensive part of the file. She had found MB1 and the palatal, and I was able to get the file out pretty straightforwardly, and that's actually what it looked like. So there still was an MB2 in this case. They're almost always there. That's what I want you to take away from this video. This is what it looks like when it's all filled up. So you can see how it does kind of congeal into one solid piece. But if we hadn't cleaned out that little isthmus there, I think it probably would have failed. And the reason I think that is because I see that on a daily basis. got a couple MB2s. This one here is a broad one, but you can see the missed MB2 on the cone beam. MB2. This one was really fun. You can actually see how far I had to trough in order to pick up the MB2. And when you look at this final, this is where the pulpal floor was, and that's actually how far down I had to go to pick up that MB2. But look, it doesn't really join until probably the last 2-3 millimeters of the case, and even then it looks like it kind of splits at the apex. So important to find these things. It's important to know that these are almost always there, and yes, sometimes you do have to do a little bit more troughing than on a normal tooth to find these. MB2, another of my famous drawings for a retreat there. You can see what that looks like. This one kind of had 3. You can almost see how the MB1 has that figure of 8 shape with a separate, we'll say MB3 off to the side. 2 MBs here. So moving through, we're now into 2024. Happy New Year. Oops, I meant to go through those. Let's move on into January because this is where it's going to get fun. You can see 2 MBs here, 2 MBs here, 2 MBs here. And ladies and gentlemen, it has been a fun time, but we finally have a single MB. Young patient, the doctor had already started the access, that's why it's so large here so you can see everything. I still troughed just to see if there were any isthmuses, but I'm happy to say this one was truly a single MB2 or MB all the way down to the very bottom. So definitely a watershed moment for all of us here on the channel. It has taken 66 maxillary first molars before we have finally found a single MB. So that leads us to an MB2 incidence of 98.5%. Now I'm going to continue this at least to 100. I'll talk about that more at the end about what I want to do next with this whole thing. Is this even worthwhile or useful? But we finally have one that is truly at a single MB. So they do exist. What I wanted to point out is I have had about 3 or 4 MB3s in this times. So it's actually more common to have 3 MB canal systems than it is to have 1. That's a big takeaway here and something we certainly are not taught. And a lot of the dental students believe that it's maybe 50-50 and probably less than that. So this hopefully is changing some minds about the true incidence of your MB2. Finishing up the month, 2 MBs, 2 MBs, 2 MBs. And so here we are 6 months into this fun study. We've got 69 nice maxillary first molars that I've done. 55 of them have had 2 separate points of negotiation for an MB2 incidence of 98.5%. We'll quick go through February. Pretty owl picture there. MB2, MB2. This one here, you can actually see how tiny that was. That's what it ended up looking like. And you can see how much troughing you have to do sometimes in these cases to actually pick up those MB2s. This was an MB3 case, MB2 with a pretty filled isthmus there, MB2. This one, I was so excited because on the cone beam, it looked like a single canal. I thought, oh my gosh, we've had 2 in 2 months. This is going to be so exciting. And I ran the gentle wave and I look inside there and there's my figure of 8. So even when I think that there's going to be 1, there's still 2. So through the month of February, we're 7 months in. I've done 75 maxillary first molars. 61 of them have had 2 separate points of negotiation by the time we are done. And MB2 incidence here is 98.6. So as far as moving forward, I'd like to get to 100 because it's a round number and it's fun. I'm not going to run any stats on this because I think we don't really need stats to say that 1 out of 75 is significant. When you look at all the established literature and you see anything ranging from 50 to, I've seen it up in the low 90s, I would say. But if you listen to how people talk about it, they don't actually look at the literature. I've heard many general dentists say MB2 doesn't exist. I've actually gotten in arguments with them about this. That's another story. So hopefully this is changing some minds. It is there. Please, please, please learn how to find MB2. It's so important. Anyway, I'm thinking next I'm going to look at maybe lower first molars. This was an easy one for me to study because I take pictures of every MB system to send to docs to show them how often there is an MB2. So if I go back to my cases from 4 years ago, there are pictures of the MB2 because I take it on every single patient. It's just part of my protocol that I do. I don't do this for all the distals, so it'd be something I have to start doing here. But I also thought maybe about doing maxillary first buys because the incidence From what I've seen, 3 canals is actually more common than a single. That would be kind of an interesting one. Maybe look at second maxillary molars, because I do take a lot of MB photos for that, and that would be kind of interesting to see, okay, there definitely is more single MB canals for those. Should we do 2? Anyway, drop a comment below. Let me know what tooth you'd like me to do next, but I'm going to finish this out through at least 100, and we might keep it going. Like I said, it's easy for me to do this because I take all these pictures. So I have a few more videos that are kind of in the docket. I promise we'll get those out here soon. Thank you all so much for watching. As always, if you have any questions or comments, please drop them below, and I will talk to you all next time.